I sat in the bathroom stall at work, hands trembling as I stared at a salary spreadsheet accidentally sent to my email. Fresh college graduates hired last month were making 30% more than me after 9 years of dedicated service. I built the entire operational foundation of this tech startup. My stomach twisted. Perry. The numbers blurred. I remembered staying until midnight fixing their broken systems, training every new hire, sacrificing weekends. They called it paying dues. Now I understood what I really was. Cheap labor with institutional knowledge they exploited. 9 years ago, I was 25 and hungry for opportunity. VentureStack was a scrappy startup operating out of a converted warehouse in Austin, employee number 12 when I walked through the door. Craig Pemberton, the founder, had this infectious energy that made you believe you were building something special. He talked about equity, growth, family culture. I accepted $52,000 annual salary because I believed in the mission. I built their client onboarding system from absolute scratch. When I started, they were tracking everything in spreadsheets and losing customers because nobody could find information. I taught myself database management, created workflows, documented every single process. Within 6 months, client retention went from 62% to 91%. Over those 9 years, I trained 43 employees personally. I created the documentation that became company standard. Every new hire spent their first week with me, learning systems I designed. I stayed late, came in early, answered emails at midnight. My official title changed from operations coordinator to senior operations manager. But the raises were minimal. Cost of living adjustments, they called them. 3% here, 2% there. By year 9, I was making $67,500. I'm 34 now, same role with a fancier business card. The office moved to a sleek downtown building. We grew to 200 employees. Craig drives a Tesla and talks about our Series B funding round. I still drive the Honda Civic I bought in 2016. The spreadsheet arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Subject line: Q. 4 compensation analysis. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But the sender was Derek Chen, my manager, from his actual company email. I opened it. Row after row of names, positions, salaries. I scrolled down, curious. Then I saw them. Tyler Brennan, Client Success Associate, $78,000, hired 6 weeks ago, fresh out of University of Texas. Madison Harper, Operations Analyst, $82,000, graduated in May, started in August. Jordan Wells, Customer Support Specialist, $80,500, 3 months of work experience total. My vision tunneled. I did the math in my head. Tyler was making $10,500 more than me for an entry-level position. Madison, with her brand new diploma and 0 real-world experience, was earning $14,500 more than I was after nearly a decade of building this company's infrastructure. I sat there in that stall for 20 minutes, just breathing. My phone buzzed. Angela, my work friend from the marketing team. Did you see that email Derek sent? She texted. Yeah, I typed back. Those numbers are real. I checked with HR last month when I suspected something was off. New hires are getting market rate. We're getting loyalty penalties. Loyalty penalties. The phrase hit like a punch. I thought about every weekend I sacrificed, every vacation I postponed, every time I said yes when I should have said no. I thought about the time I flew back early from my sister's wedding because there was a system crisis. The time I worked through the flu because we had a major client launch. The countless times Craig said we'll revisit compensation next quarter, and I believed him. Angela sent another message. They call us salary efficient in management meetings. I heard Derek say it. Salary efficient. Corporate speak for cheap, for exploited. I finally left the bathroom, walking back to my desk like I was underwater. Everything looked different. The open office plan that Craig said fostered collaboration suddenly looked like a way to monitor us. The free snacks in the kitchen felt like compensation for stolen wages. The casual Friday policy seemed like a substitute for actual respect. That evening, I stayed late. Not because I had work to do, but because I needed to think. Around 7, Angela stopped by my desk. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really." She sat down, lowered her voice. "There was a management meeting last month. I overheard part of it while I was waiting outside the conference room. They were talking about you." My heart rate picked up. "What did they say?" "Derek was presenting some cost analysis. He mentioned you specifically, called you salary efficient. Then he said something about how you're too comfortable, and they need to either give you more work to justify keeping you at your current rate, or find a reason to transition you out." The floor seemed to tilt. "Transition me out?" His words. Craig laughed and said something about legacy employees thinking loyalty equals raises. Then the door closed. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and started documenting everything. Every system I built, every process I created, every employee I trained, every client I saved, every weekend I worked. I made spreadsheets of my own, tracking my contributions against my compensation. The next morning, I arrived at my desk to find an email from Derek's assistant. It had been sent at 11 p.m. the night before, clearly by accident. It was a forwarded thread. The original email was from Derek to Craig, dated 3 days earlier. Subject: La donna situation. Derek had written, "She's been asking questions about the new hire salaries. I'm concerned she's going to make noise about compensation. Recommendation: send her the Q4 analysis. She'll either ask for a raise we can deny based on performance metrics, or she'll get frustrated and quit. Either way, we save money. She's too expensive for her current output, and Tyler is learning her systems faster than expected. We can fully transition in 60 days. Craig's response: good strategy. Document everything. If she pushes back, we have grounds for performance management. Make sure HR is looped in." I read it 3 times. They sent me that spreadsheet on purpose. It wasn't an accident. It was a strategy to push me out. I sat there, hands shaking, rage building in my chest like a wildfire. 9 years. I gave them 9 years of my life. I built the foundation they were standing on, and they were actively plotting to dispose of me like I was obsolete equipment. That's when I decided I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. Not like this. But I also wasn't staying silent. I spent 2 days preparing. I documented every contribution I made to VentureStack, organized by year. Revenue generated from my systems: approximately $4.3 million based on client retention improvements. Time saved through my process automation: estimated 12,000 employee hours annually. Training impact: 43 employees, 96% still with the company, all citing my mentorship in performance reviews. I made a presentation: professional, factual, devastating. I practiced my delivery until my voice didn't shake. I requested a meeting with Derek for Thursday morning. Thursday arrived. I wore my best blazer, the navy one I'd bought for my sister's wedding. I walked into Derek's office at 9 a.m. sharp, laptop under my arm. Derek smiled when I entered, that practiced corporate smile that doesn't reach the eyes. He's 42, been with VentureStack for 5 years, came from a larger tech company with fancy credentials and an MBA from Stanford. "LaDonna, good morning. Coffee?" He gestured to the Keurig machine in the corner of his office. "No, thank you." Derek smiled when I entered, that practiced corporate smile that doesn't reach the eyes. He's 42, been with VentureStack for 5 years, Came from a larger tech company with fancy credentials and an MBA from Stanford. Have a seat. What can I do for you? His smile stayed fixed, but something shifted in his eyes. Of course. What's on your mind? I walked him through my presentation. 9 years of contributions. Systems built. Revenue impact. Employee development. Market research showing that senior operations managers with my experience and impact typically earned between $85,000 and $105,000 in Austin's current market. I'm requesting an adjustment to $85,000, which is the conservative end of market rate for my role in contributions, I said, keeping my voice steady and professional. Derek leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. The smile was gone. LaDonna, I appreciate you putting this together. I really do. But you need to understand how market rates actually work. I do understand. That's why I'm here. These new hires. They have skills you don't. Fresh certifications. Current technical knowledge. They're coming in at market rate, because that's what it takes to attract new talent. You're established here. You have institutional knowledge, which is valuable, but it's a different value proposition. My jaw tightened. I built the institution they're learning about, and we've compensated you fairly for 9 years. You've had consistent raises. Cost of living adjustments aren't raises. They're maintenance. My actual purchasing power has stayed flat, while my contributions increased exponentially. Derek's expression hardened. LaDonna, I'm going to be direct with you. If you're unhappy with market rates, there's the door. We value you, but we're not going to be held hostage by inflated salary expectations, and we've compensated you fairly for 9 years. You've had consistent raises. I'd like to speak with Craig directly, I said. The phrase hit me like ice water. There's the door. The same door I'd held open for 43 new employees. The same door I'd walked through at 5:30 a.m. for system emergencies. The same door I'd left through at 9 p.m. more times than I could count. This isn't every salary request. This is 9 years of underpayment. That's your perspective. The company's perspective is that you've been compensated according to your role and market conditions at the time. If you want to make more money, maybe you should look at upskilling or expanding your capabilities. I started to respond, but his phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it, and something shifted in his expression. A smirk played at the corner of his mouth. Actually, LaDonna, I should be transparent with you, since you're raising these concerns. He leaned forward, hands folded on his desk. We hired Tyler Brennan 3 weeks ago. He's been learning your systems. We were planning to transition you to a different role, something more strategic, less operational. But if you're going to be difficult about compensation, maybe we need to reevaluate that transition plan. The room seemed to compress. You hired my replacement. I hired additional support for a growing department. But yes, Tyler is capable of handling your current responsibilities. We thought you'd welcome the chance to move into something new, but that opportunity comes with the compensation structure we have, not the one you're demanding. So my choice is to accept being sidelined at my current salary, or leave. Your choice is to be a team player or not. That's always the choice, LaDonna. I stood up, closed my laptop. My hands were steady now. The rage had crystallized into something colder, harder, more useful. Thank you for your transparency, Derek. I hope you'll think carefully about your next steps. You've been here a long time. It would be a shame to throw that away over money. I walked to the door, then turned back. It's not about money. It's about respect. And you just made it very clear how much of that I have here. I left his office and walked straight to the bathroom. Not to cry. To think. My phone buzzed. Angela, how did it go? Worse than expected. They hired my replacement. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. 9 years. I looked older than 34. Tired. There were lines around my eyes that weren't there when I started. Gray hairs I kept meaning to cover. I'd given Venture Stack my 20s and half my 30s. For what? To be salary efficient. To be too expensive. To be transitioned out. No, not like this. I had documentation. I had evidence. I had 9 years of institutional knowledge about how this company really worked, and I was done being quiet. I couldn't go home. The rage was too big, too consuming. I sat in my car in the parking garage for an hour, just breathing. Around 6 p.m., I watched employees leave for the day. Derek walked out at 6:30, phone pressed to his ear, laughing about something. Craig left at 7 in his Tesla, top down despite the November chill. At 8 p.m., I went back inside. The office was mostly empty. A few engineers working late, headphones on. I walked to my desk like I belonged there. Because I did. I'd earned every inch of this space. I opened my laptop and started working on my resume. That's what I told myself anyway. Really. I needed to document my contributions for whatever came next. I accessed the shared drive, opening folders I'd created years ago, pulling examples of my work. Then I clicked wrong. Or maybe right. Maybe the universe was finally on my side. A folder I'd never seen before opened. Compensation analysis. It wasn't locked properly. Someone had changed the permissions and forgotten to reset them. Inside were spreadsheets going back 6 years. Detailed compensation data for every employee. Hire dates, starting salaries, raises, bonuses. Everything. I should have closed it. I should have walked away. I didn't. I started reading. Patterns emerged immediately. Women consistently paid 15 to 25% less than men in equivalent roles. Employees over 40. Same pattern. New male hires under 30. Premium salaries, sometimes exceeding market rate. I found Angela's name. Marketing manager. 5 years with the company. $63,000. The man hired 6 months ago for the same role. $84,000. I found Patricia, who'd left last year. She'd been director of client relations for 7 years. When she left, she was making $89,000. Her replacement, a 32-year-old man named Aaron. $112,000 starting salary. I kept digging. The patterns weren't subtle. They were systematic. Then I found the emails, buried in a subfolder labeled Strategic Planning. An email thread from 2 years ago. Subject: Compensation Optimization Strategy. Craig to Derek. We're bleeding cash on legacy employees who think loyalty equals automatic raises. New talent is hungry, cheaper in the long run because they don't expect the same trajectory. Let's reallocate budget from tenured staff to recruitment. Thoughts? Derek's response. Agreed. The women won't push back hard. They never do. Grateful for opportunities. Team players. All that. The older guys might lawyer up. So we need to be careful with performance documentation. But we can phase them out over 12 to 18 months. Craig. Perfect. Document everything as performance-based decisions. Make sure HR has the narrative. What about LaDonna? Derek. She's the tricky one. Indispensable knowledge, but way too comfortable. I recommend freezing her wages, loading her with additional responsibilities. She'll either burn out and quit, or we'll have grounds for performance management when she can't keep up. Either way, we win. New hire can learn her systems for 60% of what we'd have to pay her at market rate. Craig, I like it. How much are we saving annually with this approach? Derek. Rough estimate. About $300,000 across all targeted positions. Adds 4 points to our profit margin. Makes us look much better for Series B. Craig. Excellent work. Let's discuss the timeline in Monday's leadership meeting. I sat there, the office silent around me except for the hum of the air conditioning. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely control the mouse. I read the email thread 3 more times, making sure I understood correctly. They celebrated. They celebrated saving $300,000 by systematically underpaying people who'd built this company. They strategized about how to push out women because we wouldn't fight back. They planned my burnout like it was a business objective. I pulled out my phone and photographed everything. Every spreadsheet. Every email. Every piece of evidence. My hands steadied as I worked. This wasn't just about me anymore. I found another email, dated 6 months ago. Derek to Craig. Update on compensation optimization. Successfully transitioned out Patricia and Marcus. Replaced both at 40% savings. LaDonna showing signs of stress. Increased sick days. Quality dipping slightly. May be able to move timeline up. Tyler Brennan interviewed well. Can start early if needed. They tracked my sick days. The 3 days I took when I had the flu. The afternoon I left early because my mother was in the hospital. They documented my stress as evidence of declining performance. Stress they deliberately created by overloading me. I was so angry I thought I might be sick. I closed all the folders, cleared my browser history, shut down my laptop. I sat there in the dark office, just breathing. 9 years. I'd given them 9 years. I'd sacrificed relationships, health, time with my family. I'd believed in the mission, the culture, the promise of growth, and they'd seen me as a line item to optimize, a cost to minimize, a problem to solve. I thought about all the times Craig talked about family culture at company meetings, about all the times Derek praised my work in public, about the employee appreciation events, and the casual Fridays, and the free snacks. All of it was camouflage, a costume for exploitation. I left the office at 11 p.m., drove home in silence, sat in my apartment staring at the photos on my phone. This wasn't just documentation anymore. This was ammunition, and I was going to war. Saturday morning, I woke up with absolute clarity. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started researching employment law, wage discrimination, systematic bias. I took notes like I was studying for the most important exam of my life. By Saturday afternoon, I'd contacted 3 former employees who left VentureStack under mysterious circumstances. All women. Sarah, who'd been in finance for 6 years before suddenly being performance managed out. Rachel, who'd run customer success before being replaced by someone half her age at twice her salary. And Patricia, the former director of client relations. Patricia called me back within an hour of my email. LaDonna, I was wondering when someone would reach out, she said. Her voice was warm, familiar. We'd worked together for 5 years before she left. You knew? I asked. I suspected. I didn't have proof, but I knew something was systematically wrong. When they pushed me out, I was furious. But I also needed to move on, find another job, keep paying my mortgage. I didn't have the energy to fight. I have proof, I said. Silence on the other end. Then, what kind of proof? I told her everything. The spreadsheets, the emails, the patterns, the strategy discussions. She listened without interrupting. LaDonna, I'm a labor attorney now, she said when I finished. I left tech and went to law school specifically because of what happened to me. What you're describing is textbook systematic discrimination. With that documentation, you could build a class action case. My heart rate picked up. How long would that take? Years. Maybe 3 to 5 before you see any resolution. And companies like VentureStack have good lawyers. They'll fight, settle, make you sign NDAs. You might win money, but you'll spend years of your life in depositions and court dates. So what do I do? That depends on what you want. Justice, revenge, money, change. I thought about it. I want them to face consequences. Real consequences. I want other people to know what they did. And I want to make sure they can't do it to anyone else. Then you need leverage. And you need it fast. What's VentureStack's vulnerability right now? I thought about all the company meetings, all the updates Craig shared. They're closing a Series B funding round. $15 million. The investor meeting is next Thursday. Perfect. Investors care about risk. Scandal is risk. Bad press is risk. Systematic discrimination litigation is massive risk. Who's the lead investor? Sarah Brennan, from Catalyst Ventures. I know Sarah. She's got a reputation for backing ethical companies. She's vocal about workplace equity. If she knew what VentureStack was really doing, she'd walk away from the deal. My mind started racing, so I tell her. You tell her. But you do it right. Professional, factual, documented. You give her the information and let her make the business decision. You also need leverage with the company itself. Who else should know? The board. There's an outside board member, James Hartford. He's some kind of ethics professor at UT, part-time advisor. Even better. Here's what you do. You write a detailed account of everything you found. You cite the specific emails, the specific data points. You make it impossible to dismiss. You send it to Sarah, to James, and to a journalist who covers tech industry issues. Someone with credibility. Who? Rachel Gomez at Tech Equity News. She's been covering workplace discrimination in startups for years. She'll verify everything before publishing, but she'll also put pressure on the company just by asking questions. Won't VentureStack say I violated my NDA? You documented discrimination you personally experienced and witnessed. That's protected activity under federal law. They can't enforce an NDA against whistleblowing. And even if they tried, the PR damage would be catastrophic right before a funding round. We talked for another hour. Patricia helped me outline my documentation. She reviewed the photos I'd taken, confirmed they were admissible evidence. She offered to be my attorney if things escalated. But LaDonna, she said before we hung up, be prepared. This will burn bridges. VentureStack will never take you back. Craig and Derek will see you as an enemy. Some of your coworkers might distance themselves. Are you ready for that? I've spent 9 years building bridges to people who were planning to burn me. I'm ready. Sunday. I wrote. I created a document titled, The Real Story of VentureStack's Operational Success. 15 pages. Every contribution I made, documented with dates and outcomes. Every instance of discrimination I'd found, cited with specific data. Every email that showed intent and strategy. I wrote it like a report. Factual and devastating. Then I wrote 3 separate letters. One to Sarah Brennan, explaining why the company she was about to fund was built on exploitation. One to James Hartford, detailing how VentureStack's culture violated every principle he taught. One to Rachel Gomez, offering an exclusive story with documentation. Monday, I requested a meeting with Craig for Wednesday morning. His assistant confirmed. 9 a.m. His office. Tuesday, I refined everything. I printed copies of all my documentation. I made a backup of my backup. I rehearsed what I'd say to Craig. Tuesday night, I barely slept. Part of me was terrified. Part of me was electrified. I was about to detonate 9 years of quiet compliance. Wednesday morning would change everything. I arrived at the office at 6:30 a.m. Wednesday morning. The building was empty. Just the hum of servers and the buzz of overhead lights. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked past the rows of empty desks, past the kitchen with its fancy espresso machine and organic snacks. Craig's office was at the end of the hall. Corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. I tried the door. Unlocked. He never got here before. 8:30. I walked to his desk and placed a manila envelope in the center of his chair where he couldn't miss it. On the outside, I'd written, "Time. Sensitive. Read before any meetings today." Inside was everything. Printed copies of the salary spreadsheets showing systematic discrimination. Copies of the email threads where he and Derek strategized about optimizing labor costs by exploiting loyal employees. My 15-page documentation of contributions and compensation inequity. And a letter. The letter was professional, calm, and absolutely clear. Craig. After 9 years with VentureStack, I've discovered systematic compensation discrimination affecting myself and numerous other employees, particularly women and older workers. I've documented this pattern extensively using company records that demonstrate intentional strategy rather than coincidental outcomes. The enclosed materials show that employees like myself have been deliberately underpaid while new, less experienced hires receive premium compensation. More concerning are the email communications between you and Derek, explicitly discussing strategies to underpay and push out loyal employees to optimize costs. I'm requesting immediate correction. 1. Fair market compensation for myself and all affected employees, with retroactive differential pay where appropriate. 2. Public acknowledgement in the Series B pitch deck of the actual architects of VentureStack's operational systems. 3. Derek's removal from any compensation decision-making authority. 4. Third-party audit of all compensation decisions from the past 5 years. I'm prepared to discuss these requests directly. I'm also prepared to share this information with relevant parties if VentureStack chooses not to address these issues internally. The choice is yours. La Donna. I left the envelope and walked back to my desk. Made coffee. Opened my laptop. At 7:15, I sent 3 emails. To Sarah Brennan at Catalyst Ventures. A professional summary of my findings. Attached documentation. And a note that I felt obligated to share information that might impact her investment decision. To James Hartford. A detailed explanation of the systematic discrimination, the ethical implications, and the disconnect between VentureStack's public values and private practices. To Rachel Gomez at Tech Equity News. An offer to discuss my experience and provide documentation about compensation discrimination at a prominent Austin startup. Preparing for major funding. I hit send on all 3 at 7:20 a.m. No taking it back now. At 8:15, I saw Craig's Tesla pull into the parking garage through my window. My heart started hammering. I forced myself to keep working. Eyes on my screen. At 8:35, my phone rang. Craig's extension. LaDonna, my office. Now, I walked down the hall. Other employees were starting to arrive, settling at desks, grabbing coffee. Normal Wednesday morning. They had no idea what was happening. Craig's office door was open. He stood by his window. Back to me. The manila envelope open on his desk. Papers spread everywhere. Close the door, he said without turning around. I closed it and stayed standing. He turned to face me. He looked tired, older than his 47 years. What is this, LaDonna? It's the truth. You went through confidential company files. You violated your employment agreement. I documented discrimination I experienced and witnessed. That's protected activity under federal law. His jaw tightened. You're making serious accusations based on conversations taken out of context. The context is very clear. You and Derek strategized about systematically underpaying employees to optimize profit margins. You specifically targeted women because you assumed we wouldn't fight back. You planned my burnout and replacement while I was working 80-hour weeks to keep your systems running. He moved behind his desk, sat down heavily. LaDonna, you've been a valued employee here. If you felt overlooked, we can discuss options. I can offer you a raise. How much? I'd need to look at the budget, but I'm thinking $75,000 is reasonable. The men doing equivalent work make between $90 and $110. You're still offering me less. Those positions have different requirements. No, they don't. I helped write those job descriptions. The requirements are identical. The only difference is gender. Craig's expression hardened. This is a negotiation tactic. You're trying to leverage these accusations into a bigger payout. That's extortion, LaDonna. No, it's transparency. Something you claim to value in every company meeting while privately doing the opposite. You signed an NDA when you were hired. You can't share proprietary information. This could be corporate espionage. I stayed calm. Voice level. I shared information about illegal discrimination practices. NDAs don't cover illegal activity. Any first-year law student knows that. He leaned back in his chair. Let's say you're right about some compensation discrepancies. These things happen. Markets change. Hiring conditions change. We can do a comprehensive review, make some adjustments. But you're throwing away 9 years over money. You should be grateful for the opportunity VentureStack gave you. That word again. Grateful. Something in me snapped. Clean and final. I stood up straighter. I gave VentureStack 9 years of my life. I built systems that generated millions in revenue. I trained dozens of employees. I sacrificed my health, my relationships, my time. You didn't give me an opportunity. You gave me exploitation disguised as culture, and I'm not throwing anything away. You already threw me away when you planned to replace me with Tyler while I was still working myself sick for you. LaDonna, you're being emotional and unreasonable. I'm being factual, and I'm done with this conversation. I walked to the door, put my hand on the handle, turned back. By the way, I sent a comprehensive summary to Sarah Brennan at Catalyst Ventures this morning. Also to your board member, James Hartford. And to Rachel Gomez at Tech Equity News. They all have the same documentation you're looking at. Craig's face went completely white. He stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. You. What? I gave them the truth. They can make their own decisions about what to do with it. LaDonna, you just destroyed a $15 million funding round. You destroyed this company. Do you understand what you've done? I understand perfectly. I gave people who care about ethics and integrity the information they need to make informed decisions. If that destroys anything, it's because VentureStack was built on a foundation that couldn't survive daylight. You're fired. Pack your things and leave. Now. You can't fire me for whistleblowing. That's retaliation. And it's illegal. But I'll make this easy for you. I pulled my laptop bag onto my shoulder. I quit. Effective immediately. You don't get my notice, my transition plan, or my help cleaning up the mess you made. Good luck with Tyler. I opened the door and walked out. The office had filled up while we were talking. Conversations stopped as I walked past. People stared. Word must have spread that something was happening. Angela stood by her desk, eyes wide. I gave her a small nod. She nodded back. I got to the elevator, pressed the button. Behind me, I heard Craig's office door slam. Heard him shouting for Derek. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. As the doors closed, my phone started buzzing. Email notifications, text messages. Sarah Brennan, emergency call requested. Today, if possible. James Hartford. Received your email. Board meeting called for this afternoon. Please be available. Rachel Gomez, this is explosive. Can you talk today? We'll verify before publishing. Angela. Oh my God, what did you do? Everyone's freaking out. I rode the elevator down to the parking garage. Got in my Honda Civic. Sat there for a minute. Hands on the steering wheel. 9 years. Over in 15 minutes. I felt lighter than I had in years. By Thursday morning, VentureStack was imploding. I watched from my apartment. Phone buzzing constantly. Sarah Brennan called at 9 a.m. I spent yesterday verifying everything you sent me. I had my team pull public records. Talk to former employees. Review the documentation. LaDonna, this is worse than you even know. Did you realize Derek served on a compensation committee at his previous company that faced a similar lawsuit? No, I didn't. He has a pattern. And Craig either didn't know which shows terrible due diligence, or did know, which shows terrible ethics. Either way, I can't put my firm's money into this. I'm pulling out of the funding round. What happens to VentureStack? Without this funding, they're in trouble. They've been operating at a loss, banking on Series B to extend their runway. They have maybe 6 months of operating capital. They'll have to make drastic cuts or find new investors, which will be difficult once word gets out about why I pulled out. I didn't want to destroy the company. I just wanted them to do the right thing. You didn't destroy it. They did. Years ago, when they chose exploitation over ethics. You just turned on the lights. James Hartford called an hour later. The board met yesterday afternoon. We've asked for Craig's resignation. He refused. We're exploring options to remove him for cause. But his voting shares make it complicated. Derek has been terminated. Effective, immediately. We're bringing in an outside firm to audit compensation and recommend corrections. Will that actually fix anything? I don't know. The damage to the culture might be irreversible. But we're going to try. LaDonna, I want to apologize. I was supposed to provide ethical oversight, and I failed. I didn't ask the hard questions. I trusted Craig's reporting without verifying. That's on me. What happens now? Honestly? I think VentureStack might not survive this. Even if we fix compensation, we've lost investor confidence. We're about to lose key employees, and we're facing potential litigation. The company Craig built was structurally unsound. It just took someone brave enough to point it out. Rachel's article published Thursday afternoon. The headline, Loyalty Penalty. How one Austin startup systematically underpaid its most dedicated employees. She'd verified everything. Interviewed Patricia and 2 other former employees. Gotten comments from Sarah and James. She didn't use my name, calling me anonymous source, but everyone at VentureStack would know. By Thursday evening, my phone wouldn't stop. Former coworkers calling, texting, thanking me. 5 women who were still at VentureStack reached out to say they'd been documenting their own experiences, afraid to speak up alone. Angela texted. Craig called an emergency all hands. You should see this place. People are furious. Friday morning, Craig sent a company-wide email. Angela forwarded it to me. Team, I want to address the concerns that have been raised this week about compensation practices at VentureStack. We take these matters seriously and are conducting a comprehensive review. Derek has left the company to pursue other opportunities. We remain committed to building an inclusive, equitable workplace. I know this has been a difficult week. I'm asking for your patience as we work through these issues together. Craig, no apology, no acknowledgement of what actually happened, no mention of me or the 9 years I gave. But there was another email 30 minutes later, this one from HR. All VentureStack employees, as part of our compensation review, we're implementing immediate adjustments for affected employees. You will receive individual notifications if you're part of this adjustment process. We're also establishing transparent compensation bands for all roles, which will be shared company-wide by end of month. I wasn't on the email list anymore, so I didn't get the individual notifications. But Angela did. They're giving me a 22% raise. She texted. Retroactive to January. They're doing the same for 15 other people. All women or over 40. LaDonna, this is because of you. I wasn't on the email list anymore, so I didn't get the individual notifications. But Angela did. As part of our compensation review, we're implementing immediate adjustments for affected employees. You will receive individual notifications if you're part of this adjustment process. We're also establishing transparent compensation bands for all roles, which will be shared company-wide by end of month. I sat on my couch, staring at that message. Justice, sort of, for people who were still there. But nothing for me. I'd burned the bridge, walked away from 9 years, and had no idea what came next. I've been thinking about our conversation, she said. You know what was most striking about your documentation? Not just what VentureStack did wrong, but what you did right. You built something valuable. You understand operational excellence. You know how to build systems that work. Thank you. I laughed. With what capital? What experience running a company? You have 9 years of experience seeing what works and what doesn't. You know the space. You know what clients need. And you know exactly what not to do when it comes to culture and compensation. LaDonna, what if I funded you? Series A. $2 million. You build a competitor to VentureStack, but you do it right from the ground up. My heart stopped. You're serious? Completely. Take the weekend. Think about it. If you're interested, we'll talk terms next week. But I see something here. I see someone who had the courage to walk away from exploitation and the clarity to document why. That's founder material. I spent the weekend in a daze. By Saturday afternoon, I'd gotten calls from 3 other VentureStack employees. All the women I'd found in the compensation data. All underpaid. All talented. If you start something, can we join you? One asked. I can't stay at VentureStack anymore. Not after knowing what they did. But I don't want to go to another company that might do the same thing. If you're building something different, I want to be part of it. By Sunday, I had a list. 5 people ready to leave VentureStack and join me if I moved forward. All talented. All underpaid. All ready for something better. Patricia called Sunday evening. I heard through the grapevine about Sarah's offer. LaDonna, if you do this, I want to invest. And I want to be on your board. Let me help you build something that won't need whistleblowers. Because it's built right from the start. Monday morning, I called Sarah back. I'm interested. Let's talk. Tuesday, VentureStack clients started calling me. Not the company. Me personally. They had my number from 9 years of being their main contact. We heard you left VentureStack, one said. We worked with you, not them. If you're going somewhere else, we want to follow. Are you starting something? By Wednesday, I had 3 clients ready to move their contracts if I could provide the same services. That was $300,000 in annual revenue, just from people who valued my work enough to follow me. Craig called me Wednesday afternoon. I almost didn't answer. LaDonna. His voice was different. Smaller. Can we talk? We don't have anything to talk about. I made mistakes. I see that now. We need you. VentureStack needs you. I'm prepared to offer you $120,000. Full benefits. Equity stake. Please come back. I looked around my apartment. At my laptop open to the business plan I was writing. At the notes from my conversation with Sarah about company values and compensation transparency. At the list of people ready to build something new with me. No, I said. LaDonna, please. I'm sorry. I should have valued you properly. I should have listened. You should have, but you didn't. And I don't fix broken things anymore, Craig. I build new ones. I hung up. Friday, exactly 2 weeks after I'd walked out, I incorporated my new company. Foundry Systems. The name felt right. We weren't a startup pretending to be scrappy. We were building a foundation, properly this time. I wasn't salary efficient anymore. I was a founder, and I was just getting started. 6 months later, Foundry Systems had 12 employees. Every single one was paid fairly with transparent compensation bands posted on our internal wiki. Everyone had equity. Everyone knew exactly how their salary compared to market rates, because we published our methodology. We'd signed 8 clients, 5 of them former VentureStack accounts. Our revenue was on track for $2 million in year 1. Sarah Brennan sat on our board. Proud. Patricia was our board advisor and had invested $50,000 of her own money. The team was diverse in every way that mattered. Different ages, different backgrounds, different experiences. Angela had joined me after VentureStack's compensation review, saying the money was better, but the culture was poisoned beyond repair. 2 of the 5 women who'd originally reached out were now my director of operations and head of client success. We'd implemented everything I'd wished VentureStack had been. Transparent communication, actual work-life balance, compensation equity built into our structure, not patched on afterward. No one would ever have to sit in a bathroom stall crying over a salary spreadsheet in my company. VentureStack was struggling. They'd lost 30% of their clients. Couldn't close new funding. Craig was still there. Barely. Fighting with the board. Derek had moved to another startup. I'd heard through the network that he was already implementing the same compensation strategies. Some people never learn, but I had. I'd learned that loyalty to exploitation isn't virtue. It's complicity. I'd learned that speaking up is terrifying and necessary. I'd learned that sometimes the best thing you can build is an exit. Today, I was speaking at a Women in Tech conference at the Austin Convention Center. 300 people in the audience. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces of all ages, all backgrounds, all at different points in their careers. For 9 years, I waited for someone to see my value, I began. I worked harder, stayed later, sacrificed more. I thought if I just proved myself enough, they'd recognize it, they'd reward it, they'd appreciate it. I paused, seeing younger women in the front row taking notes. Then I realized something. I was the only one who needed to see my value. Once I saw it clearly, everything else became simple. I told them my story, not for revenge, not even for catharsis anymore. To teach, they told me to be grateful. And I was. I was grateful enough to leave. Grateful enough to build something better. Grateful enough to create opportunities for other people, instead of waiting for opportunities to be given to me. I clicked to the next slide. It showed Foundry's compensation bands, completely transparent. When they pay you less, they're not just stealing money. They're stealing your belief in your worth. They're betting that you won't see it, won't question it, won't fight it. Another click. A photo of our team, diverse and smiling, taken at our 6-month anniversary celebration. But here's what they can't steal. What you know, what you built, who you are. Your institutional knowledge isn't their asset. It's your expertise. Your loyalty isn't their equity. It's your integrity. When they pay you less, they're not just stealing money. They're stealing your belief in your worth. They're betting that you won't see it, won't question it, won't fight it. I didn't leave a resignation letter on Craig's chair that day. I left a mirror. Documentation of what his company really was. Stripped of all the culture talk and free snacks and casual Fridays. Just the truth. Reflected back at him. And he couldn't stand what it showed. Some people in the audience were nodding. Others looked uncomfortable, recognizing their own situations. Know your worth. Not what someone's willing to pay you. What you're actually worth in the market. In the world. In the space you occupy. Document your work. Save your emails. Track your contributions. Not because you're planning to leave, but because you deserve to know your own value. I clicked to my final slide. Just 3 words, build something better. And when they tell you there's the door, walk through it with your head up. You might find you were building your own prison, and freedom was waiting on the other side. The applause started before I finished, building to a standing ovation. I stood there, 34 years old, founder of my own company, free from exploitation. Finally, after the talk, 3 young women approached me. They looked nervous, excited. We're in the same situation you were in, one said. Underpaid, overworked, watching new hires make more than us. We didn't know what to do until we heard your story. I pulled business cards from my bag. You're not alone. And you're worth more than they're paying you. What if we're not ready to leave? What if we need the job? Then stay. But start building your exit. Document everything. Know your value. And when you're ready, walk. There's always another door. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to open it. They thanked me and left. I packed up my laptop, thinking about 9 years ago. 25-year-old LaDonna, walking into VentureStack with hope and hunger. If I could talk to her now, I'd tell her, your loyalty is precious. Give it to people who deserve it. Especially yourself. My phone buzzed. Angela. Client meeting went amazing. They're signing the 2-year contract. That's $400,000 in guaranteed revenue. I smiled. Perfect. Bonuses for the team this quarter. You're a good boss, LaDonna. I'm trying to be the boss I needed 9 years ago. I walked out of the convention center into the Austin sunshine. My Honda Civic was in the parking garage, still running strong. I'd thought about upgrading, but I liked the reminder. I didn't need a Tesla to prove my worth. I drove back to our office, a modest space in East Austin, nothing fancy. Inside, my team was working, laughing, building something real, something ethical, something sustainable. I built Foundry systems on a simple principle. People aren't line items to optimize. They're humans who deserve dignity, transparency, and fair compensation for their contributions. VentureStack taught me what not to do. But it also taught me what I was capable of. When I stopped waiting for permission to know my worth. The best revenge isn't anger. It's building something so good, so ethical, so sustainable, that it shows everyone what they lost when they chose exploitation over integrity. I was salary efficient once. Cheap labor with valuable knowledge. The best revenge isn't anger. It's building something so good, so ethical, so sustainable, that it shows everyone what they lost when they chose exploitation over integrity. Now I'm a founder, an employer, a leader who believes that loyalty should flow both ways, because walking through it was the best decision I ever made. I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered you were being underpaid compared to newer or less experienced colleagues? How did you handle it? What advice would you give to someone facing similar workplace inequity? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else find the courage to know their worth. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming workplace challenges and finding empowerment. And share this with someone who needs to hear that their value isn't determined by people who undervalue them. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, you're worth more than anyone's willingness to underpay you. The door isn't a threat. Sometimes it's an invitation to build something better. Keep knowing your worth. Keep documenting your contributions. And keep building the career you deserve.